Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting on February 23rd, 2026. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Buss?
Here.
Commissioner Lanson?
Here.
Commissioner McMahon?
Here.
Vice Chair Kettlehut?
Here.
Chair Ferris?
Here. Tonight we have with us Deputy Community Development Director Fabiola Zalea-Melker. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Thank you, Chair. We have a supplemental packet that was distributed to the Commission and posted containing information related to item 8A. And that also has been distributed to the Commission and posted in the website.
Okay, thank you. Now's the time for public comment. At this time, any person may address the Commission regarding a city planning matter that is not on the city's this evening's agenda. Should the Commission wish to discuss an issue raised by a member of the public, the issue will be referred to staff for scheduling on a future agenda. Anyone who would like to speak under public comments must fill out a speaker card in chambers or click Request to Speak on the agenda to receive instructions before the public comments section portion of the agenda is called. Speakers' remarks should be addressed to the Commission as a whole and not to an individual commissioner or staff member. Unless otherwise provided by the Commission, speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The screen will show you the remaining time you have. Do we have any public comments? Thank you. Let's go to the consent calendar. Now we have the consent calendar with the minutes of January 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. Do we have any fellow commissioners with comments or a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'm sorry, I have a correction.
Please correct me.
Okay. My apologies. The vote on the minutes should be 3-0, not 3-1, and Commissioner Lanson should only appear as abstaining on that vote.
Okay, thank you. So do we have comments or a motion to approve the amended minutes? Commissioner McMahon.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you. I will abstain given that I was not at the meeting, the January 26th. Any further comments? If not, Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Buss?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
And Chair Ferris abstaining. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. We're now going to new business, which is our reorganization of the Planning Commission. Before we get started, we do have one member that is on video conference. Council member David Newman is available. I'll ask him to provide comments before we go through the reorganization. Is Councilmember Newman available?
I'm here. Can you hear okay?
Yes, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Buss, and good evening, commissioners. I just want to extend my thanks to the Planning Commission, to all of you for the important work you've done in the past year. You've unlocked hundreds of housing units, including, very importantly, a lot of affordable units, as well as opening the city's first homeless shelter. It's been a really momentous year. And I know you're about to vote on reorganization and wanted to take this opportunity to thank Chair Ferris for his leadership during the past year. When I nominated Mick for this post, I said he had an encyclopedic knowledge of land use matters in Thousand Oaks, and he's really proved that in spades during the past year. I appreciate all the reading that he's done, not only of the material that all of you have to pour through for every meeting, but in addition, all the supporting material. And his knowledge, his understanding, his bringing of context and history into these matters has been an enormous community benefit. And those words, community benefit, are really the important thing here. I've watched all of you act and always asking the question, what is in the best interests of our community? And for that, again, I want to thank Chair Ferris for his service to that end in the past year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Newman, for the kind words. And before I hand this off to Ms. Melliker, I just want to thank the commission for the opportunity to serve you this year. So thank you for that. At this time, I'm going to hand this off to you to run the nominations for chair.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I also want to echo that we really appreciate all of your contributions in the last year. With that, at this time, I would like to open nominations for Planning Commission Chair for 2026. Are there any nominations? Commissioner Lanson?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Kettlehut.
Yes, we need a second.
Then I'll second that.
Roll call?
Commissioner Buss?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Chair Ferris?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, at this time, we would take nominations for vice chair. Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. I would, consistent with our rotation and giving everyone the opportunity to serve in leadership during their term, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Buss for vice chair.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Could you set us up for a vote, please?
Commissioner Lanson?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Buss?
Yes.
Chair Kettlehut?
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris, right?
Commissioner Ferris, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
We need some levity. This is a good thing. All right. All right, we'd like to open the hearing on item 8A. Will the secretary please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby opened to consider Agenda Item 8A, Special Use Permit SUP 2025-70016, to consider a request for approval to establish and operate an approximately 35,000 square foot fitness club, Club Studio, to open and operate 24 hours daily within an existing retail space, former Bed Bath & Beyond, at an existing 10.63 acre shopping center in the Highway and Arterial Business C2 zone, located at 121 South Westlake Boulevard. The applicant is MMA Architecture for Dollinger Westlake Associates LP.
Thank you. Presenting on behalf of staff is Assistant Planner Nicole Katz.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and member of the public. Tonight, we're here to present a request from MMA Architecture on behalf of Dollinger Westlake Associates. I'm joined by city staff from the Community Development Department and the applicant team to answer questions the commission may have regarding the request for the operation of a fitness club with 24-hour daily operations. The item before the Planning Commission's consideration this evening is to allow the operation of an approximately 35,000 square foot fitness club to open and operate 24 hours daily within an existing retail space within an existing 10.63 acre shopping center. The subject property is located within the highway and arterial business zone, also known as C2. Per Thousand Oaks Municipal Code, Section 9-4.2105, any request involving health clubs, fitness studios, and gymnasiums which exceed 10,000 square feet of gross floor area in the C2 zone requires the review and approval of a special use permit by the Planning Commission. Additionally, Thousand Oaks Municipal Code, Section 9-4.2803C, grants the Planning Commission the authority to approve special use permits if the Commission can make the following 5 findings. 1, that the use is consistent with the general plan and applicable specific plan or redevelopment plan. 2, that the use complies with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies, including the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. 3, that the use will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. 4, that the use conforms with the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. And 5, that the use is compatible with other land uses within the vicinity. At this time, I would like to offer the Commission an overview of the application's processing. On July 23, 2025, a representative of the applicant team submitted the subject special use permit to the Community Development Department, requesting the operation of a fitness club with 24-hour daily operations and an existing retail space within an existing shopping center located at 121 South Westlake Boulevard. On January 8, 2026, the notice of application mailer was released and signage was posted on the property. On February 9, 2026, the notice of hearing mailer was released and signage was posted on the property. To date, staff has not received any correspondence from members of the public pertaining to the project. The property is located within the Northgate Plaza Shopping Center, which is bounded by Westlake Boulevard and Thousand Oaks Boulevard to the east and north sides. The Northgate Plaza Shopping Center includes a total of 94,789 square feet of commercial space across 4 detached buildings. The land uses immediately adjacent to the property include commercial buildings and automotive dealerships and facilities to the west, commercial and office buildings to the north, a commercial shopping center to the east, and the 101 freeway to the south. The closest residentially zoned parcel is located about 150 feet to the northeast of the site and is currently improved with existing office buildings. The proposed fitness club would be located within Building A, the southernmost building on the site. The development was approved by the City of Thousand Oaks Planning Commission at July 1st, 1996, under Development Permit 1996-719, Special Use Permit 1996-922, and Land Division 665. The project site is designated as Commercial Town in the 2045 General Plan Land Use Element, and this designation allows for a variety of neighborhood-serving uses, including retail, personal services, and other activities designed to serve the daily needs of residents. The project site is also located within the C2 zone. As mentioned previously, the C2 zone allows for health clubs, fitness studios, and gymnasiums over 10,000 square feet in gross floor area through the approval of an SCP with the Planning Commission. As the requested use provides a neighborhood-serving business type and is allowed with the approval of the subject application type, the project is consistent with the general plan and zoning designations. The applicant proposes to convert the former 35,358 square foot former Bed Bath & Beyond retail space into a 24-hour fitness club called Club Studio. The exterior front and rear facade of the existing building, as well as the existing rooftop equipment, will be updated to accommodate the proposed use. There will be no expansion of building footprint, and all rooftop equipment must be screened behind the existing parapets per the suggested conditions of approval. The interior will be completely remodeled, which includes sealing off access to the existing 6,704 square foot mezzanine. As accessory uses to the primary fitness club use, a juice bar and med spa will be located within the tenant space. The juice bar and med spa components are subordinate to and integrated within the primary fitness club use. The primary entry and exit into the facility will be through a double door on the front elevation. There is a secondary entrance at the front elevation through a single door, which is accessible from and through the juice bar. 2 emergency exits will be located in the rear, and 3 additional exit doors will be provided along the side. All doors will remain secured or locked as required by code. A video surveillance system will be installed that includes a 360-degree view at the points of entry to the building, throughout the interior, and at the entrances to the locker rooms. The cameras will be placed to capture accurate facial and clothing descriptions of each person entering and exiting these areas, and will be monitored by gym employees throughout the day. The video surveillance feed will be made available for review to the Thousand Oaks Police Department upon request. Club Studio's operational model requires a minimum of 2 employees to be on staff at all times. Employees will walk the gym floor and locker rooms at regular intervals to ensure that gym rules are being followed and that gym members are acting in a safe manner. Each employee will be trained to understand the safety rules of the gym and will also be provided with CPR and AED training. Adequate lighting as well will be installed to illuminate the entire premises. Per previous entitlements, the Northgate Plaza is required to provide a minimum of 493 parking spaces on site. This would be to accommodate all uses. The requirement is inclusive of a 10% parking reduction, which was granted through the 2 entitlements referenced on your screen. Under the site's original entitlement, Development Permit 1996-719, a 5% reduction in required parking was granted by the Planning Commission. Later, through Development Permit 1996-719 Modification 2, an additional 5% reduction in required parking was granted administratively, bringing the center's total parking reduction to 10% with the requirement to maintain a minimum of 493 parking spaces on site. When added to the parking required by the existing uses within the Northgate Plaza Shopping Center, and with the application of the previously approved 10% parking reduction, 490 parking spaces are required for the combined uses. According to the submitted plans, the property currently provides a total of 494 parking spaces on site. As such, with the inclusion of Club Studio and the inclusion of all existing uses on site, the Northgate Plaza Shopping Center's parking facilities are sufficient to support the project and all existing uses. As mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the Planning Commission is provided with the authority to approve special use permits if 5 findings can be made. The first finding that must be made is that the proposed use is consistent with the general plan and any applicable redevelopment or specific plan. The project site is located in the Northgate Plaza Shopping Center and is designated as commercial town within the general plan. This land use designation allows for a variety of neighborhood serving uses, including retail, personal services, and other activities designed to serve the daily needs of residents. The requested use is consistent with the general plan as it provides a neighborhood serving use and may be permitted with an approved special use permit application. The project site is not within any specific or redevelopment plan. As such, the use meets finding number 1. The second finding that must be made is that the use complies with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies, including the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. The project site is within the C2 zone, and the C2 zone allows for health clubs, fitness studios, and gymnasiums with a gross floor area over 10,000 square feet through the approval of a special use permit. The project has been reviewed in conformance with the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code and complies with all applicable sections, including Article 21, which regulates allowable uses per zones, Article 13, which sets development standards specific to the C2 zone, and Article 24, which provides parking standards. Furthermore, the minor exterior improvements associated with the project complies with the city's architectural design guidelines for commercial projects per resolution number 2005-11. Additionally, the project has been reviewed by other city departments and partner agencies for conformance with applicable laws, regulations, and policies, and appropriate conditions of approval have been contained in the proposed resolution. The proposed use, therefore, meets finding number 2. The third finding that must be made is that the project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare. The project incorporates various operational safeguards, including controlled membership access, video surveillance, interior staffing with training, and lighting controls to ensure security during the proposed use's 24-hour operations. The accessory med spa component is limited in size and scope and will operate in compliance with applicable state regulations. With these operational measures and conditions of approval, the project will not create impacts which are detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, thereby meeting condition number 3, or meeting finding number 3. The fourth finding that must be made is that the project has been reviewed in conformance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Staff has determined that the project is categorically exempt from the CEQA guidelines pursuant to Section 15301A, existing facilities. Section 15301 consists of the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, leasing, licensing, or minor alteration of existing public or private structures, facilities, mechanical equipment, or topographical features involving negligible or no expansion of existing or former use. The proposed project does not expand the building footprint or increase the intensity of use beyond that typical of an established commercial retail space within an established shopping center. Additionally, none of the exceptions to the categorical exemptions pursuant to Section 15300.2 of the CEQA guidelines are applicable to the project. Therefore, the proposed project meets finding number 4. And finally, the fifth finding that must be made is that the proposed use is compatible with other land uses in the vicinity. The immediately adjacent land uses consist of buildings and automotive dealerships and facilities to the west, commercial and office buildings to the north, a commercial shopping center to the east, and the 101 freeway to the south. The closest residentially zoned parcel is located approximately 150 feet northeast of the site and is already improved with existing office buildings. The proposed fitness club use constitutes a personal service use, which is compatible with other land uses within the vicinity. As such, the proposed use is compatible with the immediately adjacent land uses and meets finding number 5. After a comprehensive review of the project, staff has been able to determine that the project does meet the following findings required per Section 9-4.2803 of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. That the project is consistent with the general plan and any specific plan or redevelopment plan, that the project complies with all applicable laws, rules, and policies and regulations, including the municipal code, that the project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, that the project has been reviewed in conformance with CEQA, and that the proposed use at the proposed location will be compatible with land uses in the vicinity. Earlier this afternoon, a supplemental packet was provided, and I will take time now to describe the requested changes contained within that supplemental packet. Upon review of the draft resolution, the applicant and tenant requested a few revisions to 2 of the proposed conditions of approval. Condition number 18 pertains to the operation of the accessory med spa and juice bar uses associated with the project. The original intent of the condition was to ensure that these 2 uses remain ancillary in scope and function to the primary fitness club use. The applicant and tenant requested revisions to the original condition language for the following reasons. 1, being that Club Studio's licensing agreement with the med spa operator, Kalelegy, does not preclude them from providing services to non-Club Studio members. Revising the condition to allow for the med spa uses to be offered to non-Club Studio members would be in alignment with their licensing agreements. And 2, that the juice bar's hours of operations indicated in the original condition were erroneously provided. The hours of operation of the proposed juice bar and the revised conditions properly reflects the operational needs of the juice bar. Staff is of the opinion that the revised language continues to meet the original intent of the condition. With the revised language, both uses will continue to remain accessory in use and function to the primary fitness club use. Additionally, the accessory uses are included within the parking analysis and independently would be permissible uses within the C2 zone. As such, staff recommends that the Commission adopts the revised language for condition number 18 on accessory uses. Condition number 47 pertains to the installation of a video surveillance system. The original intent of the condition was to ensure that a video surveillance system is installed to provide visibility to the parking lot and exterior areas. The applicant and tenant requested revisions to the original condition language as installation of a video surveillance system throughout the exterior of the entirety of the complex would present a financial burden to the applicant and tenant. The tenant has indicated that they already intend to place security cameras exterior along the north and south sides of the building to monitor the parking lot areas immediately adjacent to their portion of the building. Staff is of the opinion that the revised language continues to meet the original intent of the condition. With the revised language, the scope of the condition is narrowly tailored to reflect the scope of the SUP, and the condition is in alignment with the deployment of exterior surveillance cameras already intended by the applicant. As such, we recommend the commission adopts the revised language for condition number 47. Staff concludes that the request will not have a detrimental impact on the surrounding area, and with the suggested conditions of approval, meets the required Thousand Oaks Municipal Code findings to approve the subject special use permit. It is staff's recommendation to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA as a Class 1 categorical exemption pursuant to Section 15301A, existing facilities, and to adopt a resolution approving special use permit 2025-70016 based on the findings and subject to the conditions described within the resolution and as revised within the supplemental memorandum. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. That was really nicely and cleanly laid out. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Are there any ex parte communications to disclose at this time? All right. Thank you. And now we ask for the applicant or the applicant's representative to speak. Could you please come to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record? Your team will have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Briefer than that. My name is Michael Helenius with Dollinger Properties. I live in Ventura, but use an office here in Westlake, Thousand Oaks. Dollinger Properties, we developed this site in the late 90s. I think the approval was 97, and have owned it ever since and managed it ever since. I've managed it for about 8 years. So we're very excited for Club Studio to come along and backfill Bed Bath & Beyond, who was there for many years and unfortunately didn't make it, had to close all their stores. But we're excited for what Club Studio has to offer, and we appreciate Chair and other commissioners, your time and appreciation of our project to review. And I want to say a big thank you to Nicole and staff for all the work for the last 7 months and for this presentation as well. She's been really great to work with, as well as the other staff members. Yeah, we're excited for Club Studio to come in. I think they have a lot of different offerings. It's not just a gym, but they have the med spa within, they have the juice bar within. They also have recovery, which we have some members from Club Studio here that can talk a little bit about the operations, all that they have to offer. So we're excited. We think it's be a great addition to the community. We'll serve the community, and is just plays a little bit differently than maybe some other gyms that may be in the city and have different things to offer and more to offer. So we are all here to, we have some of our brokerage team, the architect team, and then the operators with Club Studio to answer any questions, as well as myself. And we just, again, appreciate your time and consideration this evening, and we can answer any questions that you guys may have.
Okay, I'd say just stay there for just 1 second. 1 second. And want to thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions of the applicant from my fellow commissioners?
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the change to item 18, I just kind of want to get some understanding. Is the med spa going to be a subtenant? Because again, the reason I'm asking is the language initially says it's not supposed to operate as a separate, independent business, so to speak, but it sounds like that is really the intent.
I'll let Club Studio answer that, because our contract is with Club Studio, and then I'll let you answer with that.
Thank you. My name is Mike Callahan. I work in the property development end of our business. Colology or Beaming are not subtenants. They are licensees. There's a big difference in law in how they're treated. So we, with Colology in our license agreement, we allow Colology to use, to serve our members and non-members, but that's a rare instance. We have a lot of people that come in, they're prospective members. You know, they might want to purchase something or get an infusion of vitamins, whatnot. So we thought it was important to maintain consistency with that license agreement so that Colology would not bolt from this project.
And I understand, I know the difference between a lease and a license. I'm a real estate attorney by day, so I do get it. I just wanted to, really my question was, are the non-members then entering the premises from the same entrance as regular members would be?
Yes, yes, they are. There is a single door near the juice bar where people can exit, but it's not an entrance to the club.
Okay, all right, thank you. I have nothing further.
Do any other commissioners have any questions of the applicant? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we'll go to public comments. I do have 4 cards, but I believe they are with the applicant. I'm going to call you anyway. Do any of you want to speak, or were you just providing, some of these say just questions, available for questions only. Do you want to speak? The 4 of you who filled out cards? Any of you? You'll have 5 minutes. And again, if you could just state your name for the record.
Well, I just really wanted to thank Nicole Katz for all her efforts with this project. It's been going on now for about a year, I think. And the rest of the planning staff. And I think it's a great project for the city of Thousand Oaks. It's a very upscale brand that we're developing. We've been into this for about 3 years. We've got over 800 LA Fitness clubs and other brands across the U.S. and Eastern Canada. So we're on a big push to do new real estate deals for Club Studio. And we're converting a lot of our existing LA Fitness clubs to Club Studio. So very aggressive push in that regard. We focus on demographics and communities, and we feel this is a great location for this type of a business. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? We have 4 of your cards here, and it did say questions only. Last chance.
Nicole had asked me to say that we have received and reviewed the conditions and approved them as they were amended. That's it.
Thank you. I was waiting for Commissioner Lanson to say that, so come on. All right.
Hello.
Hi, yes. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Hi, my name is Ricky Kozlowski, and I'm an operations manager at the Club Studio down in Long Beach, California. One of the reasons why I filled out the card that you have is mainly to provide any sort of answers to questions in terms of experience or what the club is all about, to become that kind of liaison to provide you guys with any additional information you may need.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions for him? Well, thank you. Calling once, calling twice. Okay. We'll now go back to staff for follow-up comments, please.
I have no additional follow-up comments, but I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments for staff? And does the applicant have any rebuttal comments? Okay. All right. Commissioners, we're going to close the public hearing now, and I will now open up the floor for discussion and/or a motion. Commissioner Lanson?
First and foremost, thank you, Ms. Katz, for a great presentation and making sure the applicant understands the most important part, which is to accept the conditions. In this difficult time, we look for the best use of real property, and I think from a standpoint of looking back, a 35,000 square foot property, I think this type of use is the best use of the property and has a good motivation, good people behind it. Looks like it's going to be a good operation and a good asset for the city. So I will go ahead and make the motion to, as I get the glasses on, approve a resolution finding that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act guideline pursuant to section 15301A for existing facilities, and approving special use permit SUP 2025-70016 based on the findings and subject to the conditions described therein in Attachment 4, as well as the Supplemental Package 1.
Thank you. Any discussions on the motion? Will the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Buss?
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
There will be an appeal period. Any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal the Planning Commission's decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. All right, we move on to 8B, Latigo Hillcrest. Will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider Agenda Item 8B, Specific Plan Amendment SP 2025-70003, Development Agreement Amendment DAGR 2025-70005, and Development Permit DP 2025-70019, Major Modification. Consider amendments to Specific Plan Number 24, 2022-70778 SP, Development Agreement 2022-70777 DAGR, and a major modification to a Development Permit 2022-70773 DP, originally approved by City Council on July 18, 2023, that would allow changes to building facade design and materials. The project was previously reviewed for compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, under 2022-70774 EIR, and the proposed changes would not introduce changes to the project description considered by that environmental impact report, located at 2150 West Hillcrest Drive, Assessor's Parcel Number APN 667-0113-075. The applicant is Latigo Hillcrest.
Thank you. Presenting on behalf of staff is Senior Planner Justine Kendall. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. The item before the Planning Commission for this evening's consideration are, as just mentioned, amendments to Specific Plan Number 24 and Development Agreement 2022-70777-DAGR, as well as a major modification of Development Permit 2022-70773-DP, originally approved by City Council on July 18, 2023, that would allow changes to facade design and materials for the project approved at 2150 West Hillcrest Drive. To provide a quick overview of what was already approved in 2023, the project site consists of one parcel totaling 8.28 gross acres. The map on your screen provides an aerial view of the site showing the previously existing vacant office and surface parking, which have since been demolished. The project site is surrounded by developed urban uses and generally located north of US 101, east of Rancho Caneo Boulevard, and a Chevron automobile service station, south of Hillcrest Drive and the Amgen Industrial Business Campus, and west of an existing multifamily apartment complex known as the Linden Apartments. The project is currently under construction for aspects of the development that are unaffected by the subject request. The subject request involves modifications to various aspects of the project approved by the City Council, which included the entitlements listed here: a general plan amendment, a zone change, a protected tree permit, a special use permit, as well as the entitlements listed here, which are the subject of modification this evening: the specific plan, development agreement, and development permit. The approved project is characterized, or the project that has been approved previously, is characterized by a multifamily mixed-use development that includes an internal pedestrian-oriented roadway separating two buildings, which would contain 333 multifamily residential units, including 30 very low-income affordable units and 3 moderate-income affordable units. Common areas and amenities: 5,300 gross square feet of commercial retail and restaurant space above semi-subterranean parking structures, containing a total of 462 parking spaces, as well as 121 surface parking spaces. The northerly building, fronting on West Hillcrest Drive, also known as Building A, shown here, is mixed use with 3 levels of apartments above a ground floor of both residential units, amenities, and commercial tenant spaces. Building B includes residential uses which appear as the 4 other larger buildings on site, connected by various walking paths, breezeways, and bridges. The smaller building incorporated into Building B will house the leasing and property management office. Additional indoor and outdoor amenities are provided to the residents throughout the site, including a playground, swimming pool, courtyards with active play spaces, roof decks, and a dog park. As approved, the project's architectural design is a modern style. The exterior walls of the building are earth-toned colors, primarily consisting of stucco finishes, simulated wood fiber cement panels, brick veneer, multi-panel window areas with dark bronze trim, bronze and glass balcony railings, awning, and trellises. The northern building, or Building A, located behind an existing landscaped berm with protected oak trees to remain in place, includes significant articulation and massing breaks. Building A also features a public seating area on the ground floor in front of the commercial units and material changes at the driveway entries to encourage pedestrian safety and activity. The southern building, Building B, includes similar materiality and articulation throughout, although to a lesser degree than Building A. The southern facades of the building are visible from the 101 freeway and, as approved, are required to incorporate additional brick veneer somewhere on each sub-building, subject to review and approval by the Community Development Department. It is normally expected that following planning entitlement approval, plans submitted for grading and building plan check review may be modified due to refinements made during the final engineering design process, updated business plan or financial considerations, or to comply with the conditions of approval. During those review periods, revisions to plans are categorized as either minor or major changes. In this case, definitions of what was to be considered minor or major were included in Section 10 of the adopted development agreement. In particular, the development agreement specified that changes to building materials that are not comparable or better than those included in the project plans dated May 26, 2023, are to be considered a major amendment requiring Planning Commission review and City Council approval. Accordingly, during final project design and engineering, the following major revision changes were identified and are formally requested by the applicant this evening. The primary issue before the Planning Commission is whether the requested architectural modifications maintain consistency with the enhanced design features and material standards of the original project approvals, including Resolution Number 2023-043, which approved the development permit subject to the conditions of approval contained within that document, Specific Plan Number 24, and the development agreement. The Planning Commission must review and forward a recommendation to the City Council, which retains final authority to approve, modify, or deny the request. The list of requests is summarized here, and I will go into more detail on each one afterwards. They include the removal of trellises rather than adding additional trellises, providing external rather than internal downspouts, replace French doors with metal utility doors for residential exit stairs, substitute painted accent headers in a complementary color in place of the previously specified wood look trim headers above all inset windows, reduce the commercial storefront facade to approximately 60% glazing from the required 65%, to retain metal awnings as originally proposed rather than adding additional awnings, substitute metal awnings with wood frame trim, to remove vertical wood-like slats except those which appear on primary building facades facing public streets and interior driveways, to retain the brick veneer as originally proposed rather than adding additional veneer, and to provide vinyl window frames only rather than non-vinyl framed windows required in specific areas. Let me provide a little bit of context for how this came about. As part of the typical planning entitlement review process, which is the part that occurs before a project goes to hearing, the applicant submits plans which are refined as staff provides feedback. Corrections are made to bring the plans into compliance with regulatory requirements, and negotiations are held to balance project-specific context and operational requirements with city design guidelines. In some situations, design revisions are deferred to what we call the post-approval process and memorialized as conditions of approval, which are contained within the final resolution, in order to allow an applicant to move forward to the public hearings, thereby getting some assurance that the project may be approved in general. In the instance of the subject project, resolution number 2023-043 included specific design modifications as part of the conditions of approval, requiring revisions to be made during that post-approval process, which is the building permit or grading plan check process. Other conditions included in the resolution reinforced that certain aspects of the project must be maintained, as they are particularly important to the design quality of the development. The draft conditions of approval, including the design-related modifications or enforcement conditions, were provided to the applicant in advance of the public hearing to allow an opportunity for review and discussion. The applicant agreed to the conditions at the time of Planning Commission and City Council consideration, and the project was approved subject to the conditions presented at those hearings. Many of the conditions of approval adopted for this project were intended to ensure consistency with the city's architectural design guidelines, precise plan of design guidelines, commercial design guidelines, city gateway guidelines, and freeway corridor guidelines, as well as the specific plan for the property and the development agreement, which included the developer's commitment to provide, quote, enhanced architectural design with appropriate massing and scale, extensive articulation, glazing, and extensive detailing with upgraded materials. However, at this time, the applicant is requesting relief from several of those project conditions, which I will go over more specifically now. The first request is related to condition of approval number 48 of the adopted resolution, which required several changes from the plans presented at the hearings. The provision of shade structures over common outdoor spaces was required, as stated here, to maintain or provide greater visual interest and roof articulation, as well as shade for the users of such areas. The applicant has declined to provide additional shade structures over common rooftop patios and is requesting to remove the several that were previously proposed. For example, the plans as approved shown here, you can see where the top of the trellis was previously proposed and as approved within the red outline. And here you can see, as requested, no trellises provided in that area. Similarly, this, where the arrow is pointing would be where you could possibly see the trellis to be provided on Building B's rooftop deck. And lastly, on the ground floor level of Building B in the interior of the project, the permanent shade structure is now proposed to be movable furniture. The second request relates to condition of approval number 62, which states that downspouts shall be avoided or concealed within the building walls at specific feature corner elements such as the commercial and retail corner and brick lobby towers or any facade viewable from Hillcrest Drive or Rancho Conejo Boulevard. Any downspout not concealed within the building walls must be painted to match the wall behind. While the applicant has made significant attempts to reduce their visual impact, exterior downspouts remain visible from the public right-of-way and affect the overall architectural quality of the facade, specifically those visible from the public roadways adjacent to the project site. The applicant is, as part of request number 3, requesting that certain exit doors shown here in yellow, primarily serving residents and their guests, be allowed to be painted solid metal doors, although they were originally approved to be French glass doors, as you can see in these side-by-side images. Condition of approval number 57 specified that exit doors visible from public streets needed to be decorative, and although the doors requested to be changed are not visible from public streets, they are visible from internal roadways. As such, it was determined that this request qualified as a major modification, since doors serving primary residential and guest access should generally enhance the overall quality of the building design and incorporate decorative elements and provide visibility for individuals entering and exiting. For the fourth request, condition of approval number 53, as well as the design standards within specific plan 24, require specific window trim or header materials. These standards were required as material with higher quality materials and more substantial detail, help create physical and visual depth, enhancing the overall quality of the design and adding articulation to the building facade. The applicant is meeting the requirement to inset 36% of all residential windows. However, they have requested to provide a painted trim only rather than a wood look or tile or brick header. You can see the comparison as approved on the left-hand image and on the right side as requested. Condition of approval number 54 and specific plan 24 require that 65% of the commercial storefront facade have a transparent window area and a 3-inch recess requirement. The applicant is meeting the recess requirement, but is requesting to reduce the transparency to 60%. The images above show an example of how this change would appear. Condition of approval number 48, sub-requirement E, required that additional awnings be provided to increase visual interest and articulation throughout the project and to provide shading to residents. The first sub-requirement for awnings on the north side of Building A is to be met by the applicant and is not part of the subject request. Otherwise, the applicant is requesting to maintain the third floor metal awnings on all elevations as indicated in the plan set presented at the 2023 public hearings, which is what you can see here on the right side. And the facade, as designed to meet the requirement included in the previously mentioned condition, can be seen on the left. In addition to seeking relief from the third floor requirement, the applicant is requesting to remove awnings previously provided on the fourth floor and to replace those awnings with a wood frame trim. You can see as proposed on the left, as approved on the left and as requested on the right. It should be noted that in some cases, the fourth floor awnings are proposed to remain as approved. This image also shows an example of where third floor awnings are requested to not be provided. While not specifically called out as a condition of approval, the applicant is also requesting to remove the wood-like material cladding from elevator towers, except those which appear on primary building facades facing public streets and interior driveways. As approved can be seen on the left and as requested on the right. Specific plan number 24 requires that veneers such as the vertical slat material turn corners on such building elements in order to appear more substantial and authentic and to provide visual interest from as many perspectives as possible. The removals are proposed at the locations shown here in yellow. Condition of approval number 48, sub-requirement F, required that brick veneer, which is proposed heavily on Building A, is also included on Building B sub-buildings 1 through 4. Staff included this condition so that the building facades facing the 101 freeway exhibit a similar quality of design to those facing other roadways. The brick veneer adds significant value to the overall sense of authenticity and depth of quality to the design wherever it appears. The applicant is requesting relief from this requirement for the 2 southernmost buildings that are visible from the freeway, highlighted here in yellow. As part of the development agreement negotiations, relief from the standard prohibition of vinyl windows found in the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code was provided, and only those windows on external facing facades were prohibited from being vinyl framed. The applicant now seeks more complete relief from this requirement. And although vinyl windows have been used in other successful projects in the city, it should be noted that vinyl window frames may exhibit different long-term durability and aesthetic characteristics compared to aluminum, fiberglass, or wood alternatives. Condition of Approval 48, Sub-Requirement D, memorializes this agreement, as do the design standards of Specific Plan Number 24. That concludes my review of the individual requests. To describe a little bit more of the other requests this evening. Some of those requests relate to Specific Plan Number 24. An amendment to that specific plan is included as part of the overall request to accommodate those design revisions not currently permitted by the specific plan. Those would be related to the commercial storefront design, window header design, and window materials. The development agreement is also proposed to be amended as related to the subject request, the developer's commitment to build the project with enhanced architectural design with appropriate massing and scale, extensive articulation, glazing, and extensive detailing with upgraded materials was included. The subject development agreement is requested to remove and replace the dates of the approved plan set and specific plan within section 10.1, and to remove and replace the conditions of approval, which are included as an exhibit to that document. The remainder of the agreement is unchanged. The adopted specific plan, development agreement, and development permit establish architectural standards and material requirements that formed part of the basis for the original project approval. Certain modifications to those elements are defined as major changes requiring Planning Commission recommendation and City Council action. The requested amendments involve revisions to facade articulation, architectural detailing, material specifications, and storefront glazing requirements. The Planning Commission's role is to review those proposed modifications and provide a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council retains final authority and may approve, deny, or modify the requested amendments in whole or in part based on its policy considerations and findings. In making its recommendation this evening, the Planning Commission may consider whether the proposed revisions maintain consistency with the design objectives and public benefits identified in the original approvals. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any questions as well as the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. That was really, really helpful and a lot to cover, an awful lot to cover. Are there any ex parte communications to disclose? Yes.
I had a brief conversation with a representative of the Latigo group.
Anyone else? I would like to disclose that I did also have a brief conversation with a consultant from Latigo. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments of staff from our commissioners? Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Ms. Kendall, thank you very much for going over that. I just wanted to double check a few of the details on that. Thank you for going through the recitation of where each of the requests are in the condition of approval. I had checked it myself to kind of understand if they were correct from my perspective. I just wanted to double check for A, which is about the trellises. I think you may have said it was 48A, but I have it as 48C. Am I looking at the right place in the conditions of approval?
That I said that in the staff report or in
It actually was on the slide, I think, as 48A, so maybe I didn't hear it. If you said 48C.
I'm sure whatever you're looking at is correct. It's C.
Okay, thank you. And then for D, I don't know if you mentioned it. You referenced specific plan 24, but is condition 53 of the conditions of approval also kind of where that is? And
that's right.
Okay. I think those were only the ticks and ties that I wanted to get at. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to kind of get an understanding also just of exactly kind of where we are with this. So obviously we came through it, went through the planning commission hearing. Ultimately, the city council's the one that makes the final approvals of the entitlements and such. And also because it was part of a development agreement, based on my read of the development agreement, there's a section 6.2.10 that references Exhibit D, which has the conditions of approval in it as part of the agreement. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And everything that we've specified here, the plans of what we're pointing to, condition 48, which sort of talks about everything that's on the particular exhibits except for the following, and then it goes through a number of things to be added later. That was part of the conditions, so therefore part of the development agreement also. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And all of that was approved by the city council?
Yep.
And was the development agreement executed by the city and the applicant?
It was signed and recorded, yes.
Okay, great. So I just want to know, like, they've agreed to the conditions, and part of the agreement that we've gone through the process in. The requests are to make revisions and then, make changes to specific plan and new development agreement, conditions of approval based upon what the city council ultimately agrees to. Is that also correct?
Yes, the development agreement would need to be amended to incorporate those exhibits by reference.
Okay. And then the last thing is, Norma, I just want to kind of get an understanding of what we are being asked to do here. Normally, I think, because there's a number of requests, and I think we're sort of wanting to consider them and make a particular recommendation, we would make a recommendation of what we would either like to have included or forwarded up to the city council, and then would there be specific languages of things that we would have to, I don't think we have a specific resolution with findings or anything, but I'm assuming that would be part of it based upon our guidance of what the recommendation is. Is that also correct? Maybe you can.
Yeah, so you probably notice that there's no resolution attached to the staff report, and staff has not made any kind of recommendation. There's several requests by the applicant, and so the job of the Planning Commission is to review the requests and make a recommendation regarding those requests to the City Council, and that could, take many forms, right? It could be recommend approving all of them, recommend approving none of them, recommending some but not others. So that's part of the reason that there's no recommendation, is that there's really a lot of different options.
Okay. Thank you. That was what I just wanted to kind of make sure we're kind of all on the same page of what we're trying to do today. So thank you all. Thanks very much.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kendall, for the report. Just a few kind of follow-ups. It doesn't appear so, but I want to confirm, by virtue of our recent general plan update and all of the other updates we've done, there's nothing that the city would be required to change as part of this. This is all discretionary, correct?
That's right.
Did the applicant give any indication as to the basis as to, are these unexpected costs that were caused from tariffs or from something that was unexpected, or was there any indication as to why they're asking for this change?
Yes, and part of that explanation was provided as part of tonight's agenda packet, and they are here as well to explain their request.
Okay, we'll go to them. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner,
In general, these changes that have been made, will they affect how this property ages? Like, it appears that a lot of these things are less quality materials, less quality way that they're doing it. And am I to understand that perhaps in 10 years, if we make these changes, it will not look as good or age as well as if we don't make these changes?
Yeah, and determining the difference between a major and a minor amendment, the language is of materials that are comparable or better, and in making that determination, the longevity of the material is one of the things that we consider, and that's also a good question for the applicant in terms of what the differences are.
Thank you. That's it.
Commissioner Buss, do you have any questions? I actually have a couple questions, and it's actually kind of getting into the weeds on this, and I might have to just ask the applicant, but if you know. So do you have any idea on A, the trellises, why they're removing the trellises? Has that been provided to you?
Yes, and that will be part of, I think, what they share this evening. But I'll speak briefly that some of it is related to flexibility of the space and what they can do in that area, and otherwise, I think, cost savings as well.
Okay. And then with respect to the downspouts, how many are we talking about approximately, or maybe specifically?
That's a great question. I will have to check on that and get back to you.
Okay. And then explain a little bit about the glazing reduction to me and why we have a 65%, why they agree to 65 and now they want 60%. If you could give me, and again, that might be a question for the applicant.
Why the glazing has been downgraded from 65 to 60. That is a good question for the applicant, and the architect is here to explain that partially. I believe some of it is due to some program changes. So more linear feet of commercial space is provided, but also structural changes in terms of the amount of framing that's now provided.
And then finally, okay, with respect to the window, because that's a big ask. The windows are really a big ask, I think. The vinyl versus what was the material going to be before? Were they metal windows?
It has always been proposed that they would be vinyl, and the condition of approval and then part of the development agreement negotiations were that some of them would have to be non-vinyl. Normally, the requirement is that vinyl windows are prohibited.
And the ask now is that they would all be vinyl.
That's correct.
Have you seen this material? Have you been presented with these materials?
There are projects in the city that are all vinyl framed windows currently.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Buss?
Why previously was vinyl not allowed for the windows? You just stated that we have current projects that have the vinyl, but previously the city didn't permit vinyl. What was the reasoning for that?
So the prohibition on vinyl framed windows was introduced with the adoption of the objective design standards. So projects that were approved and built before those standards were in place didn't have to contend with this requirement. And that requirement was introduced as part of the objective design standards because non-vinyl materials tend to be longer lasting, hardier, more environmentally friendly, et cetera.
But that's not the case. That's not actually true, right, for vinyl? Because vinyl, one of the reasons in the packet we were given for doing vinyl is the longevity of it.
One of the reasons provided by staff or by the applicant?
Within the agenda that I read for this meeting.
In the staff report?
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps it was written incorrectly. The vinyl windows, the non-vinyl windows have greater longevity.
Okay. But I thought there was something in regards, so you're saying that previously it was vinyl that was like a wood look, so it's more decorative, and now they're just asking for just a plain vinyl.
Same vinyl, with the wood look vinyl. The same thing is proposed, but it remains vinyl.
Okay. So the materials are the same between what was approved and what is proposed, just a different look.
I would say what was shown during the approval, but the approval was conditioned that they would change the window frame material.
To what material?
Aluminum, fiberglass, wood, an alternative.
And then those definitely have a longer life than vinyl. Okay.
That's right.
Just because I just did my flooring and wood versus LVP is better, so that's why I'm like, okay.
Any other questions? I do have another question. We're stuck on the windows. In terms of maybe percentages or numbers of windows, what are we talking in terms of what they're looking to change out from the original development agreement on the windows themselves?
So certain facades, all the exterior facing public roadways and internal driveways were required to be non-vinyl. So anything really publicly facing.
Any more questions? All right, thank you. And now we would ask for the applicant, Mr. Mark Marone, or the applicant's representative to speak. Could you please come to the podium, state your name and city of residence for the record, and your team will have 15 minutes for your presentation.
I just ask that you excuse my Kermit the Frog voice. It's a holdover from a cold I had a little over a week ago, so I apologize, and I'm not going to speak very much. Just like to say, Justine, thank you. It was a great presentation. And look, I think hopefully most of you know that Latigo was the developer of Santal. We believe we brought a great project to the city. We brought not just great tenants, residential tenants, but we brought great commercial tenants, having just come from Basta, which, again, continues to live up to what we thought it would when we first attracted them. What we're proposing, really, and as you said, Marcel, something about the windows, Santal has the same windows. And we think architecturally, Santal set a great bar. When we envisioned the project and we budgeted it for what it's worth, we assumed vinyl because we had done it at Santal. Given the rents that we intend and need to get, I can at least try to assure you that Latigo takes the design aspect incredibly seriously. We're not developers who ask for rents that aren't justifiable. I mean, there's supply demand, but there's an aesthetic. And we believe the consumer, especially in Thousand Oaks, at these rents is sophisticated and understands the differences between quality. You can't ask for X price in rent when you're delivering B-class materials as opposed to A-class materials. So hopefully I just ask that you objectively consider what Fernanda Frisbee is going to show you at KTGY, because we are acutely and profoundly affected by design. It's why we chose KTGY a second time. It's why we try to design beautiful projects. We think the new project, Oakwell as we call it, will set an even higher design standard than Santal did. There are features and amenities that are just not available in most places, let alone Thousand Oaks. I mean, this is the kind of project that, it took a long time to come together. We're proud of it. We think it's, again, going to be incredibly well received, particularly in a very important corridor for all of you, which is the life sciences corridor. So what we're proposing here, there's always cost, but really we approach it with, if it's not as good or better, we're not proposing it. We're not trying to create an aesthetic that anybody here looking back would say, I wish they had done this and this. We really believe that what we're asking for will not materially affect the design. And when we talk about life expectancy with various materials, keep in mind it's the developer's responsibility to provide maintenance. And budget maintenance. We have to keep things, whether it's wood, trim, etc. You have to keep that updated. The weather here is going to have its impact. It's up to us to make sure we can't ask for those rents. Again, if the consumer's walking in saying, somebody's not taking care of this, why should I live there? So I'm going to just not speak much more because I don't have much left. I just ask that, I think you know us. We gave you what we hope is a great product with Santal. This is going to be even better. And we just ask again, please be objective. We're not trying to come up with suggestions that are going to materially alter the design. We have rents that we have to achieve, to make this project work. And the last thing we ever want to do is take advantage of the city, let alone the tenants who are going to pay good money to live there. So I'm going to introduce Fernanda, who actually has a voice. And thank you.
I just got a call, but I'm good. Fernanda Frisbee. I'm with KTGY. We are part of the architect team, and I live in Los Angeles, California. Do we need to show the presentation that I shared? No. We, Justin already shared with you our intent for the proposed modification that we have worked with the owner, which is the Latigo Group. And the purpose of this modification is to formally seek approval of the proposed plan changes outlined in the package that was shared with you. We categorize this into 3 buckets. The first one is some inconsistencies that we find between the development agreement and the approved entitlement drawings, which our team is trying to keep as original design intent. The second one is the structural, programming, and operational requirements that have made changes to the original proposed drawings. And then a few cost-effective design strategies that we don't believe that have a significant impact on the design intent, the maintenance and durability of the project in a long term. Outlined, as Justin mentioned in the presentation, the first item is the brick veneer. This was something that was written in the development agreement, but not part of our original design intent on the elevations facades for the two buildings facing the freeway, which is our buildings of the building B. The second item is the third floor awnings. We are trying to maintain the provision of metal awnings as original depicted on the approved drawing set, instead of the language described in the development agreement. And the third one is regarding the windows frames, that we are trying to keep a consistent design between all the windows in the project, and to have them specified as a dark bronze vinyl frames instead of the description in the development agreement. As you can see in the elevation shown on the screen, that is the south perspective view as currently designed of sub-buildings B, and that is shown also as in the approved drawing set. We believe that just adding brick veneer, as described in the development agreement, does not really comply with the original design intent of our buildings. The third floor awnings, that's also an image that Justine shared in the presentation. The image on the right shows what our original design intent proposed, and the image on the left shows what it would be to add those to the building as it is currently planned. It's hard to see on the image, but we had requested samples of what could be a wood grain film that can be added to vinyl windows. We, as the architect, do not recommend this material as it looks extremely glossy and plasticky to the eyes, and we also do not know the durability and maintenance of it in the long term. Vinyl windows, however, have proven to be more durable than before years ago. Our office in general has a track project line of projects that just specify vinyl windows, and we also provide required specifications for the maintenance and the warranty of the product. So the developer should follow what's in our specifications book for that. They're also going to be dark bronze color, which aligns with what was presented in the approved drawing set. And as a reference project, Mark mentioned the project at 299,000 NOx, which is Santal. That's a project that was designed by KGUI, and that includes all vinyl windows at all residential units. All the commercial spaces and amenities, entry lobbies are all storefronts, aluminum storefronts. So there are no changes to those. The second bucket is the structural programming and operational requirements. This is a result of the needs of the different disciplines that made these projects happen, that sometimes come at a later date. It's also requirements, some of the requirements that changed or were needed because of code updates. This project was designed before the last code currently in place, which is the CVC 2022 building code. The first item is the commercial storefront design. I know there was a question, and I can ask more specific after, but the requirement from 60 to 65%, the deviation is due to the placement of some utilities as the gas meter on the south, and some programming changes that came as part of the commercial space, which require its own trash room. on the interior of on the commercial space, and then the relocation of the previously proposed bike storage room, which was confined to be all together with the e-scooter bike chargers and the electrical bike chargers in one room on Building A. And that's placed on the south side facing the internal driveway. The second item is the trellises. The roof deck at Building A, that's not visible from an eye-level view across the street on Hillstar Drive. That facade is facing north, and in discussions and review with the landscape architect, is not needed for the programming of that area at the floor level. The area is intended to be a relaxed lounge space with a barbecue space and some lounge areas and planters on top. And there's no need for shading. As mentioned, this is facing the north side of the building, and it's already going to be shaded off. The roof deck at Building B, that was a discrepancy that happened between our 3D massing building and perspective views versus what was shown in floor plan views. And also as a result of the programming and in discussion with the interior designer and the landscape architect, they wanted to keep the use of that space as a flex space. So it can be used for outdoor exercising, birthday parties for kids, classes, and various activities that also do not require to have a shading structure in there.
I did want to let you know you have about 4 minutes to.
Okay, I'll go quick. And then the same applies for the barbecue courtyard between the sub-buildings. Building operations and maintenance will be providing furniture and furnishing equipment as like umbrellas and seating spaces. The back of house openings, it's to provide at all exit stair metal doors instead of the French glass door. We do have a limit on the square footage for glass provided. We're limited to only provide 100 square inch per CVC code at exit stairs, so that might actually impact the look that was originally designed. And then on the third bucket, last but not least, there's some design strategies that we work with Larigo that we don't believe impact the design intent of the project. The first one is the vertical slat to keep them all in the facades facing public streets and interior driveways. So we still keep the enhanced architectural articulation for those areas. The window header design that used to have a wood look trim headers above all inside windows. So we are requesting to provide painted accents. All the inside windows are to remain. The 4-floor trim detail about the window frames instead of metal awnings. These metal awnings are located on single corridor areas at the 4th floor, and they are facing roofs that are not occupied. They're also not considered for Title 24 energy calculations. And then last but not least, the drainage and downspouts, which is just part of a coordinated drainage strategy. It allows to keep the parapet heights as they currently are, so we don't have an impact to the overall floor to floor and total height of the buildings. So we have tried to provide a drainage strategy that hides these downspouts as much as possible, and we're planning to paint them with the color of the facade. And it's also similar to what was done at the Santal Project 299. Questions?
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of either of the applicant speakers? And also wanted to mention we have Mr. Keith McCloskey, who is a principal with KTGY via Zoom, if you have any questions for him. Commissioner McMahon.
I'm not sure, excuse me, I understood about the glass in the exit doors. And you said something about the the amount of glass.
Yes.
Could you explain further?
Yeah. California Building Code has limits on the amount of glazing that can be provided on egress doors. And where we're requesting the modification is at the exit doors, which are considered egress. So the max area that can happen is 100 square inch for glazing without being protected.
And so, but you're proposing to eliminate the glazing completely?
Correct. And that will match what we requested as a minor modification for all the back of house utility doors. These doors are not intended to be used by the residents.
Why aren't you just proposing to reduce it to match the ordinance?
Because the look of it and the design intent is not going to be what's shown on the proposed drawings. So the area would be much smaller. I don't think there's a door here. Similar to what you see like at schools, where they have like a vision panel, and it's just like a square, like on top for security reasons as provided. But it will be hard to achieve that long glass panel on those doors.
And the requirement is that, are you saying that we are, with this design, it's going over the requirement and it's like not legal?
It is going over the requirement, yes.
But is it legal to do that?
No, it's not. We're
Okay.
constrained to the 100 square inch glass panel.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Latigo for investing in the city, and we appreciate what you've done. And obviously, this is a very involved project. I do want to ask some questions, understanding that this doesn't just affect your project, but to the extent that there's some process that we go through now, I don't want to make sure, obviously, every developer then sees an opportunity to come back and renegotiate things after the fact. So I want to kind of go back to your buckets, so to speak. So the last bucket you were just talking about was essentially more cost-effective ways of dealing with things. And my question essentially is, were these costs that changed since the initial development agreement was signed, or why is it all of a sudden we're focusing on these issues, and why are you asking for a modification as to those?
My understanding is that, yes, there has been some impact, right, on the past years since the project was designed and developed. But we were very careful that these strategies will not impact the design intent of the project.
I understand that. Have you quantified the amounts that each of the ones in the last bucket would actually end up saving to the extent that those accommodations were given?
I don't have numbers with me, no. Not as the architect, no.
Again, I'm trying to find some basis then why those were included and not potentially other cost-saving items, just at that last bucket. I wouldn't go farther than what's shown here as an architect and designer, because if, of course, everybody is trying to make more cost-effective decisions, every day. Right.
But as the architect, we believe that these are only the items that would not represent deviation from what was originally presented, and that the quality product, that is the project that's going to be developed and used by the user, is to be within what was originally proposed.
Okay. And then as to the first bucket, I know I'm skipping around, but the first bucket was, if I understand correctly, was inconsistencies between the development agreement and the plans that were approved. Mm-hmm. Is that an issue that could have been recognized at the time that either our commission or the city council actually approved the project? So I'm wondering exactly when that inconsistency was determined or discovered.
To my knowledge, we were not involved directly with the review of what was on the development agreement and the approved zero drawings. At some point, they were, all together in one packet. It is something that came out as we developed the project and we submit to the city for review. So we just tried to be consistent with what was originally proposed, and it came out as a result of the plan review process that the city has in place.
Okay, and that was not discovered until after everything was signed?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. And the second bucket was?
Structural, programming, and operational requirements.
And is that something that also came up after the fact, after everything was signed?
Yes, yes. That came up as a typical process of going from concept design plans and then moving on to a schematic design, DD, CD, bringing in other disciplines such as interior designer, operations for the project, and their needs. So we try to address those as much as possible.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner
Thank you. And actually, Commissioner Lanson basically asked mine. I would have said it a different way, which is ultimately what's the compelling reason why we're here today about some of these things. I do want to ask, though, that, and I asked it to staff, but I'll mention it here. Right, in the conditions of approval, they do reference the pictures, the exhibits, and then identifies that these are revised building colors, materials, all the conditions are for those exhibits except for the following, and then these are the things we're actually talking about here. So they were in the conditions, we reviewed them, we had a public hearing, the applicant was here, it's part of the development agreement, the development agreement was executed. Before that, the city council reviewed it, we had another public hearing. So I'm kind of understand there was an understanding that what was being asked for when the final review is different than what might have been in the original documents. But I'm trying to understand, with all of the aspects of having it in front of us and the parties agreeing to it, why did it take until then, and why are we considering it now?
I wish I had a better answer for this, but I was involved in the project when we started schematic design, and at the time of, our office has, also like 2 teams. We work together. Fortunately, the original designer is not there. Kit is on the line in case he has more to add to this, but it just came as a agreement and understanding, to the best of our knowledge, that what was approved on the drawing set was okay to move forward with, and that was our originally design intent was. Like, I understand, as an architect, as a designer, the language on the development agreement, but I don't necessarily agree that just because it is shown in text form, it actually creates a better project. Just adding, ornamental elements to a project as described doesn't necessarily mean that the design intent or the project is going to be a better product at the end of the day.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bess?
So just so I understand, this is for staff as well. So these modifications are being requested, the overlays on the materials, the trellises, is that just standard, or is that something per this project that was recommended by the planning commission, the planning staff?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. So are you saying the changes that staff require?
Right, but so there was a drawing created or rendering by the architectural firm. And then this was brought to the city to say, hey, can we do this? And in the writing, things were added, is what I'm hearing, like wood, look, and I understand from a design perspective, why are we adding these things onto the building? Because these are Thousand Oaks suggestions, correct? Not anyone, it's not it's not a safety issue, or it's purely subjective what aesthetics. And so what I'm hearing from the architectural firm is aesthetically the original drawing is better, and when we add in these other things, it also creates more maintenance too. So I'm wondering how that happened and why that happened.
Sure. And I tried to explain a little bit of this. So when plans come in, right, like you're saying, they're submitted, we review them. We review them for regulatory compliance, and also, there's some back and forth on consistency with our design guidelines, which are not, requirements necessarily, but what the city has identified as being important, or goals. And so as part of, and in addition, there's a specific plan which creates specific regulations for this project, and the development agreement. So as part of that back and forth process, there were a lot of revisions made to the plans over the course of that time. And some of those revisions were deferred to this post-approval time period, everything in that condition 48. So the trellises, the vinyl windows, et cetera. And some of those requirements were indeed baked into the specific plan as well. So now they are regulatory requirements. And so I think there's some misunderstanding about what we're calling revisions required by conditions of approval, Fernanda has identified as inconsistencies, and yes, they are inconsistent in that the plan set that was brought to hearing had not yet made those revisions required by the condition of approval, but they remain required. Does that help?
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get to is this overlay for trellises, awnings, and certain materials, a wood look, a brick look. So are we saying that that is specifically stated as a regulation for our planning in Thousand Oaks?
Those are specifically required for this project as a condition of approval. The approval was conditioned.
So who made those required?
The city council adopted those
Okay.
requirements.
That's just,
Yeah.
If I may add also too, is part of the discretionary review, and also part of this project, because it has a development agreement, community benefits were also negotiated. So there were a lot of things that they did not comply, that our code and objective design standards do require, and those were negotiated. And so they had, as Senior Planner Candle described, they had the opportunity to review all the conditions of approval. And there was a lot of back and forth in negotiating this development agreement.
sorry, I just want to make a comment to that. I understand community benefit, but we're talking about aesthetics is what I feel like right now. And that's why I'm wondering, because, obviously time, delays, having to vote. I'm just trying to get a handle on, because everything I see in these modifications, none of it is really like safety or community benefit. It has to do with aesthetic look of the building.
Aesthetics is a community benefit. It also contributes to the built environment.
But highly subjective. So that's why I'm curious about who's setting the standard and if it's through the whole, if you're telling me that every building, but you're saying it's specific to this project, that someone decided trellises, a wood look, and a brick look were of community benefit, correct?
Correct. It's meant to enhance the elevations, which results in a better...
And who decides, though, because like we have an architect right here, and I mean, I'm curious, so is city council making those subjective decisions that this aesthetically, because I understand if it's something like outrageous, like if they're going to do a purple building, or like when city, the Circuit City came a long time ago and wanted to do their huge tower, and we want to maintain a certain aesthetic here. But these seem like quite like getting in minutia, so that's why I'm curious.
That is part of the review process.
Are there any other questions? I actually have a question. Mr. McCloskey, are you still logged in? Did we lose Mr. McCloskey?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening. This is Keith McCloskey from KTGY.
I have just a quick question for you, and it's kind of riffing on what Commissioner Lanson asked in terms of the buckets. So the as I see it, the overarching reasons for the modifications are aesthetics, use, and cost. Can you maybe explain a little bit in terms of, kind of going back to what Commissioner Lanson was talking about in terms of, why you guys have come back for this? And I think that Ms. Frisbee has done a great job of explaining why, as you've been working through the construction process, before you get to the construction process, you've determined certain things, you want certain changes. So could you speak to that, to the aesthetics, to the use, and to the cost?
Yeah, I can speak to all three of those, and then I'd also note that Latigo's there in person as well if there's any specific developer questions. But yeah, I did have the benefit of being a part of the KTGY team, working alongside Mark Marin and the Latigo team during the entitlement process. And through that process, we worked with Justine and her team at Community Development to work on what I think we all collectively believe to be the best project that had the right balance of design, community benefits, and got as close to meeting all of the objective standards as possible as well. And I think through that process, we get to, the finish line of getting city council approval. And towards the end of that, some of the things that are requested are conditions of approval that we've talked about, as well as the final kind of pass at the development agreement. At that time, in the last couple of days before a public hearing, we don't necessarily have the benefit to go back and kind of reprice in detail all of those things until a project gets to a certain phase, and then it goes through a repricing exercise. So that's essentially what happened here, where we get deeper into the project, more details develop, more takeoffs run, and at the end of the day, where there's additional costs there, some of which is escalation, some of which is other costs that come about throughout the more detailed pricing exercise. But at the end of the day, trying to maintain a project that achieves the overall vision that City Council approved is really what our goal is. And so doing things that ostensibly change the building envelope or start reducing square footage or otherwise kind of more drastically changing the project to reduce cost kind of really isn't an option. Our option was more looking at some of these very nuanced or specific details to see where is the real value and are there any opportunities for some elements that are more decorative or could be deleted without completely impacting the overall visual aesthetics or quality of the project. And so as part of the process that we went through to analyze kind of the execution of the final construction and final details, these were some of the changes that we arrived at being necessary to meet code, as Fernanda mentioned, in some cases, to be flexible with the owner's programming, as that might change in certain spaces, and then cost-related issues as well, being a part of that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McCloskey? No?
Thank you.
Much. Now we go to public comments. I don't see any public comments. Am I correct?
No.
All right, thank
None.
you. All right, none. We'll now go back to staff for follow-up comments, if there are any.
I just wanted to mention that I think it would be something around 14 to 16 downspouts would need to be internalized
Okay.
to meet that requirement.
That's helpful, thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments for staff at this time? Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Can you help remind me just some of the timing of like when in 2023 we went through the Planning Commission hearing in City Council? I'm seeing that May 26th is the date at which the exhibits are stamped. And that's when sort of that's what we're all kind of anchoring on with respect to that. Do you remember when we had the Planning Commission hearing? It was in June, but just trying to get the date.
I don't remember the
I feel
specific
like it was earlier in June, but I don't.
We're going to look it up right now,
Okay.
but somewhere right around there.
But I do then see that this was approved by the City Council on July 18th. Is that right?
That's right. The City Council had, I believe, 2 hearings. I think that was this project for the purposes of extending the public comment period
Okay.
for procedural issues. I think that was this project. And so that would be why the date was later.
Okay. So then, at least just from just trying to do the math here, the exhibits were basically stamped were about, the people looking to review them was going to be stamped by the end of May, and we're looking at the middle to, second half of July. So there's a couple months in between that period of time. Is that right?
Right. So the plan set for the purposes of hearings was provided in late May, and then those are not really revised between Planning Commission and City Council.
And so then any of the additional conditions of approval obviously would have been recommended and reviewed in public hearings by the Planning Commission and then subsequently by the City Council. per these June and July hearings, right?
That's right. They were provided prior to Planning Commission hearing.
And then the last thing is, I'm just trying to get it then an understanding, based on the recommendations that the commission might end up making on it. These are requests by the applicant that constitute under the development agreement what's considered a major modification. So it kind of comes to us, and that's why we're here. If for any reason any of the conditions that we would not recommend, or the city council would not do that, could they always come back to you with respect to, maybe we can revise the design and it would qualify for a minor under the agreement such that it doesn't have to come back to us? In other words, I'm thinking in particular these French door things that tend to come up. There's a concern, and I don't know if it meets state code or whatever that might be. I'm looking at condition 57, and it doesn't say anything about specifically French doors or glass paneling. It just states that they're decorative, right? So if for some reason a different decorative option is their condition to their, is that something they can continue to work with staff on how to do that? Is that a fair way of?
Certainly, right. If they were to propose something that was determined by the community development director and city manager to be comparable or better, then yes, that would qualify as a minor revision.
Okay, I just want to kind of get an understanding where we're with it, so thank you.
Any further questions? Commissioner McMahon?
Commissioner Buss brought up the fact that these specific things were, changes were specific to this project, but were they based on the overall objective criteria for the whole city? And this is how you adapted this specific project to the citywide specifications?
Yes, and in part, the development agreement, part of that public benefit was that enhanced architectural materials, high-quality materials would be used throughout the project. So in negotiation, right, the city provides X, the applicant provides Y. One of the public benefits to be provided by the applicant were those enhanced materials. This Condition 48 kind of memorialized that to be more specific of what we were looking for.
Okay, and then can you comment on those windows, whether the glass is not compliant with state laws?
I would have to defer to our building official and our plan check staff on that, but glass doors are provided elsewhere for other egress purposes, and I think to Commissioner Ferris's point, we would need to see a proposal that was comparable or better. So even if they can't do the glass, what is another decorative design that would be acceptable?
I see. I think that's it for me for now.
Any other questions from commissioners? And does the applicant or any of the applicant's speakers have any rebuttal comments? And you can have 5 minutes if you'd like that. Do it.
I'll give this one more attempt. I think keep in mind that what city sees in terms of plan is not what we ultimately get when we do construction drawings, right? So things do change. And windows, for example, we had assumed, given Santal, and actually it's not just Santal, I think KGGY could give you a list of other high-quality projects that were done, the same windows. You get further along, we were already into the funding for the project with capital partners. So you can appreciate that, credibility is everything. And a budget that they're looking at and responding to, we do everything we can to protect it, but we can't know completely because the city has its process. It comes after, or it came after we had already budgeted the project, and we're seeking financing. The financing took almost 6 months to complete because I think all of you know how difficult the capital markets are today. So it's not that and we did identify, I think Justine can tell you, where once we saw the city's stance on some items, we said, look, it's not what we assumed. And Justine rightly said, well, look, there are certain things that we can administratively give you, but what's considered a major mod that has to go to city council, you'll have to come back. It's almost March, but this was months ago where these were identified. But you all have a process here with city council meetings set well in advance. So we're here today not because we don't want to be here earlier, much earlier. The process itself took months to get us scheduled. So I just want you to understand that we identified, Justine, how long ago do you think it was that we knew what the minor major mod issues would need to be?
About a year ago.
Was that?
I think about a year ago.
See, about a year ago, but so we're here today, but just understand the situation it puts us in because we're trying, especially with lenders, the last thing they want to see is a changing budget. We did the very best we can, even with contingency, to project what the project's going to cost. It's a $200 million project, and we've got serious institutional partners who don't take kindly to changes in budget. So it's not like we didn't identify the problem was we had no choice but to complete the financing, knowing that there were some things that we felt were justifiable to ask for, particularly like the windows. We had used them in Santal. You know, the project went well, and so many other projects have it. It wouldn't have been logical for us to assume that there'd be any change suddenly with this project. But it's a big item, you know, as far as, and so we found ourselves in a position where we had to table it, and our capital partners, we have a contingency. Last thing we want to do is blow through that because it creates a lot of other serious issues with covenants, et cetera, with your loan documents. But the process is such that we're here, you know, a year later, we did identify it. I just didn't want you to get the impression like, and I would, I think Mr. Ferris, you asked, like, you're here now, why are you asking for this? We did identify, and in a big picture sense, we just don't see, and I think, you know, perhaps, and if you want more explanation, we can go through with actually samples that you can see, but we just don't think the windows are going to look any, I mean, you already have many of them here, and they've worked really well at Santal, as we found out. So just asking again from an objective standpoint that there are some very objective design standards that were used here that don't necessarily, in our view, create better design. And if it doesn't create better design, I think it's justifiable then to say if you can do something as good as before, but for less cost, we should be enabled to do so. Where there's a serious disagreement, we would understand this is a very high-profile project. It has to be beautiful, and I don't think anything we're asking for is designed. There are reasons. The downspouts, Keith, if you don't mind, are you listening, Keith? Keith?
Mark, yes, I am.
Okay, so Fernando tried to explain it. Maybe you could try again. The downspouts, it's not an issue so much of design, it's also the vertical articulation of the buildings creates issues with trying to keep all the downspouts internal. Maybe just comment on that. There are real issues as to why it's hard to do. If you could just speak to that, that'd be great.
I think with architectural facades, we try to the extent possible to try and make sure that downspouts are things that are there for whether it's water capture or other technical purposes to kind of integrate into the building. And in the cases where we can, try and do them internal. And I think Fernanda can speak to some of the specific conditions, but I think Justine mentioned there are about 16 or so of them. But I think to the extent that they're done at a location where it doesn't interrupt the facade and the patterning, and they're done in a way where the color is really neutral and matching the material that it sits in front of, we can really help make those disappear. And that's really our intent, to make sure that they're well detailed and color coordinated so that they disappear to the extent possible. In some cases, getting the interior downspout to work with the wall thickness or what's happening on the interior of a unit or an adjacent space sometimes can create conflicts internally to the building and to the ceiling heights or other things that negatively impact in other ways. So that was one where in analyzing it, seemed like in this specific case, it made sense to pull them outboard and have exposed external downspouts.
Thank you, Mr. McCloskey. Thank you. Very salient points. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to close the public hearing. I will now open up the floor for discussion and/or a motion. Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to do discussion first because this sounds like something we need to kind of roundtable. I just tell you my thoughts. So typically, Planning Commission, we don't make rules. We apply codes, rules, regulations, and if there's a gap, we interpret or apply what the City Council has done as part of the process. So I'm not looking at what I think necessarily, but looking at what the City Council may look. And again, at the end of the day, it's their decision. I mean, we're providing a recommendation, but at the end of the day, it's going to be their decision. So my thought process was in looking at all of the things that were asked for, and again, Commissioner Buss, you kind of were looking and saying, none of these are purple buildings. You're right. They're not adding 10 floors to a building and stuff like that. I think there are some that might flow, in my opinion, from what the City Council has done as part of that. And the three that I kind of looked at was the back of the house opening, that I think Commissioner Ferris even mentioned, the third floor awning, and the window frame. I think those three things are items that flow from what City Council has done kind of before, in my opinion. The others, I think, getting a little bit too much into things that are the City Council's idea of public benefit in terms of visual aesthetics. That might be something, again, they can address, but I feel uncomfortable saying something that ultimately would then be contradictory to what I think they might end up finding. So was my thought process of the three that I thought kind of flowed somewhat in terms of what the City Council has done before, but that's just my thought.
Who else? Commissioner Buss.
So just as part of the discussion and being the new person on the dais, so when we make recommendations, we're basing it on what we think will get through City Council or what we think as like a community member? Yeah.
Commissioner Ferris?
My sense on it is that this is our recommendation. We have a very specific role in city government to be able to provide this. We're being asked to make a recommendation about what the City Council should entertain, and I think it should contain what we believe is our best recommendation, consistent with, the authorities we have.
Because we're representing as, living in the area and, we're separate from City Council, even though we flow into them, correct? Okay, I just want to clarify.
Commissioner McMahon?
I kind of have a bias. I live in Newbury Park, and when we first moved here in 1985, we were the ugly stepsister, and Newbury Park was just almost an afterthought. It didn't get the attention or the respect of the rest of Thousand Oaks. And so through the years, it's gotten better and better and better. And now I feel like we're like on an equal basis with Thousand Oaks. And these design criteria throughout the city, I want them to flow and continue to flow into Newbury Park. And one thing in particular, as somebody's driving on the 101, I don't want them to look at this building and say, ooh, this is the bad part of Thousand Oaks. I want it to be beautiful on the freeway side as well as the other areas of the building and on Hillcrest or whatever. So I hope that we can take that in consideration when we make our recommendations. And that's it for right now.
Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. I've tried to be open with respect to hearing what staff has said and the applicants and everything else. I'll give you kind of a rundown of what I'm thinking, but I'm actually not compelled to support any of the recommendations that we have. I would urge the commission to recommend that we keep the entitlements and development agreement. As it's been stated, I haven't heard anything that is so compelling that we should recommend changes. Part of the reason for this is this was 3 years ago in which we entertained this. As we said, the exhibits were dated at the end of May. It took 2 months, and these conditions were part of every single public hearing, public notice, encapsulation of the development agreement, for which I'm assuming if there was any point along the way that the applicant did not want to have this as part of the approvals, those were the opportunities at which to be able to bring them up. And because we ended up having hearings, I remember people discussing how big this was going to be, how much noise, how much traffic, the standard things sometimes that residents bring to our attention. But in some ways, I welcome the analogy for Vice Chair Buss of saying, hey, this isn't a purple building. But the analogy, while stark, is if they recommended a purple building in their design and our city said, well, wait a second, we're going to condition it a certain way, and they agree to that, they don't get to come back and say, we really wanted the purple building. I mean, they agreed to it. The city agreed to it. The applicant agreed to it. They executed a development agreement specifically encapsulating all of those things. And what I do worry about, and I've been through a number of hearings in which people say, well, we deal with these things on a case-by-case basis. It's not going to be a precedent for how we go about these things. The second time around, where they do exactly the same thing, that's used as a precedent because they said you did this before. And what I worry about is if the time at which it's important for us to really get a lot of the details squared away should be at the time that they're working with staff to be able to present it in the public hearings. People have an opportunity to understand what those will be. City council's there to do that. And these were encapsulated as part of a development agreement, and we're getting a whole bunch of public benefits, but we are giving things to them that would benefit the project, and it benefits them financially. There's the zoning. We've changed our general plan so that they can end up having commercial and residential. This is prior to the general plan update. We changed our zoning, we implemented a specific plan, we developed a development agreement to lock in their entitlements. Development permit, we approved a protected tree permit, which removed 17 protected trees and encroached into 8 so that they could have the use of the property based upon this. They got approved for an SUP for an alcoholic beverage license. They got a 35% density bonus as a result of that because they're going to provide 30 very low income units and 3 moderate income units, which I think that I know I was open to approving these because this will provide a public benefit for people of lower income to live in the city. And it's going to be 55 feet tall, which is 20 feet higher than what we normally allow for buildings in here because of all those public benefits. We've worked with them to be able to do that. I'll say, like, in looking at the aesthetic designs of what the exhibits look at that are presented as with the recommendations and the original May exhibits, I prefer the May ones. I think they look better. I don't think these look better. So I think that one of the things, for that reason, I think we should agree to uphold our previous process of how the city and the applicant worked to have this approval to, as we put in there, they're getting these public benefits because they're providing enhanced architectural design and appropriate massing and scale, extensive articulation, glazing, and extensive detailing with upgraded materials. That's in the development agreement. And with all of that detail, the public, we, the city council, we all took that into consideration very seriously. And I don't see a compelling reason to make those changes now. Plus, it opens up the potential down the road of approve now, but renegotiate later. And I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of say, hey, we did this right the first time, and I would recommend that we stick with the original approvals.
Commissioner Buss.
I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Ferris, and I wish that we could just create these one-size-fits-all so we don't have to renegotiate, but as brought up by Latigo, we have to consider things like financing, the cost of the projects, ease of process. So during the process, it was stated that they were told these are the aesthetic improvements in order to get these bonuses, but then it took us how long to get to here? So that's why now you have me sitting on the dais who did not participate in the original, looking at these requests with fresh eyes and thinking, first off, I don't think the trellises add anything. I don't think the awning adds anything from, to your point, I moved here in 1989 as a fourth grader. And I know what you're saying about Newbury Park, but then Dos Vientos came in and definitely changed that. Amgen's creating, the tech corridor and everything. So I don't see in any way by accommodating these changes that it would create a building that's a blight or bring down the overall aesthetic of the city. And then I also have empathy for the process of trying to get things built in the current economic environment. So that's why I am open to this. But I hear what you're saying, but I say that no matter what, part of the beauty of, like, say, the Constitution is that it is amendable and we can negotiate and change things. So I don't think you're ever going to have this perfect rule. These are the rules and we're all following it. And that's what I'm kind of hearing you say, is that, well, we made this decision, we being whoever was on the dais, whoever participated a year ago, and now we should stick to it, which I don't agree with that type of thinking at all. Because new information, when it's presented to you, should be able to be considered. And if I hear what you're saying that you don't want to go back on, but your reasoning seems to me to be based on then this might happen in the future. And I guarantee you this is going to happen in the future regardless.
Yes.
I appreciate your comments. I don't think that is how I'm coming at it. The reason why it's important to think about these things, though, is ultimately is it's the process by which we work with the people asking for city approvals and what's the right best way for that to end up happening. And prior to this, there was significant working with staff in order to come up with the conditions of approval. And we go through public hearings, and because it takes public hearings, which requires notices, and then there's a recommendation to the Planning Commission, and then it goes to City Council. You have to go through all that again. It takes a significant amount of time to do that, right? But again, I kind of want to stress, like in Condition 48C of the approval, which talks about the provisions of the trellises, it says provision of the trellis or other shade structures. The point of it is to provide shade for patio areas. That was there in the conditions. They agreed to that in there. They're coming back and saying we want more flexibility, but basically they don't want to put structures up. They want to
because they want flexibility in the use of the space, which I think is a community benefit to the people there that are living there and using that space.
That's what they're stating now, and that's certainly fine. But like I said, I don't find that to be compelling. For that reason,
I guess what I'm not understanding is who distinguished these as upgrades? Who says that? I mean, because I don't see it that way. And, as someone that's lived here a long time, homeowner, et cetera, I don't see this as, like, from an aesthetic point of view, adding stacked stone or something like that. To me, it just creates more stuff to maintain.
It's fine. The only
and
last
I
part
just would want to see a building that's clean, well done. And I feel like a lot of stuff was added onto it, but from my perspective, that does not add an aesthetic quality to the building.
And but one final comment, only in this, is that it doesn't matter who added it. The city agreed to it, and they agreed to it.
But I thought the city added it.
But they agreed. And
you're saying
the applicant agreed to it. There's a development agreement that they signed that has these conditions in it.
And they have multiple parts, because we have Latigo, we have the architectural firm, we have the financing. And so, yes, when you have a large project, you're going to have many factors, plates spinning. And so the representative that signed and said, yes, we can work with this, but then as someone brought up, they don't know the cost right then. So, I mean, maybe we make a provision that before they sign it, that they go to everyone, or we have more than one person sign. But this isn't, like, to me, I think you're sticking to something which just is boggling my mind, because I don't see this as a big deal, but you're holding up a project or potentially making the financing an issue over these trellises and over the awning. And, which none of these are health and safety. None of these are like, I'm not going to go by and be like, you know what, that building needs a wood facade,
And again, I appreciate all these, is that I just, especially the city government and where we're in, I don't think it's I don't think we have to be the ones to kind of make it easier for what people want to.
We
have as a
aren't, we're
request.
just
They've
making a
agreed to it.
suggestion. And it's not easier because it took them a year to even get to this point where we can have this discussion. So that's where I'm coming from, is why is this so inefficient? And then we're disputing like aesthetics over, because they got a bonus to have density or a higher density because they allowed low income, which low income is 6 figures in this area. So it's not like.
That's not for this project. These are very low income. It's below.
I looked
6
at
figures.
it, yeah, 50,000 for one person, and then when you get up to 4, but I'm pretty aware of what low income, mid income is for the Southern California, cost of living. So I don't see why the trade-off is, but you have to have awnings because of that. Like that's the line you were making in your discussion, that because we gave them more units because they offered to do low income, then they must have trellises and awnings.
Okay, let me.
I did not make that connection. I did not make that connection.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. I'm gonna jump here. Can I jump in here? I'm gonna jump in here. I think, again, trying to pull together, everybody has made great points. I mean, really great points, because again, we're talking about development agreements but as you said, development agreements have to also understand the economics of the time where we find ourselves right now. And I don't believe you've indicated that you feel they're renegotiating the development agreement. I don't see it that way. I don't think they're renegotiating the development agreement. I think they're coming back, and it's kind of like what Mr. McCloskey was talking about. He said, we have overarching reasons for these modifications: aesthetics, use, and cost. And as we have gone through the process, it's our process. We create that process for them. And so now, again, they wanted to come back earlier, but because of our processes, here we find ourselves a year later. And so I feel for them. And, they've got, we want, again, it's a balancing act. We want to encourage developers like this to come to the city to invest in us. And that's our gateway. Just as you said, that's our gateway for Newbury Park. That will be the defining project for Newbury Park. And so, there was a salient point made by, is it Mr. Marone, who indicated that, we've got these we've got these lenders that are breathing down our neck now. And we made these decisions way back when, but things have changed. There are tariffs. We've changed the use of these facilities. So and the aesthetics, we feel what we're giving you is better. And, luckily we do have, as Commissioner Lanson always says, are you going to build it? Are you going to entitle it and not build it? Well, they have built it. Santal is there right in front of us. And we've seen the types of retail that they've attracted there. They've gone through a number of tenants, but now look at who we have there. And so I do think there's a public benefit in that too, in the way that they build. I think we can trust them. I don't believe that they're renegotiating. And so, again, we're just making a recommendation to City Council. We're not, there's nothing binding on this. So I would like to go with what Commissioner Lanson said, is at a minimum, take those biggest items. The other items, I don't want to say they're silly, because there's nothing silly about any of this. There was a development agreement. I get it. None of it's silly. But I think when they get to the point of being in front of City Council, they're going to, hearing what we've said, they're going to have a lot more meat on this to come back and say, this is why we did this. This is why we did this. This is why we did this. Do you understand why we did this? And I would be inclined to go with what Commissioner Lanson indicated with that one particular bucket. That's my. Yes, Commissioner McMahon.
Can you be more specific about that particular bucket?
Commissioner Lanson.
That was number C, number C on page, I guess it's 6 of the staff report. C, which is the back of the house opening, G, the third floor awnings, and J, the window frame.
There's also the list of requests on the screen over there to your left. Are those the same ones?
Okay, so you're not suggesting the brick veneer. You're not suggesting what were some of the shade structures. You're not suggesting the metal awnings, except for in the third floor.
Correct.
What about the fourth floor?
Again, I just threw out the three that I initially thought of, but if you want to suggest other ones,
Actually, I'd rather see the third floor remain and the fourth floor be eliminated if we're going to get that specific.
instead you would say F instead of G. No, it's different, I guess, than the what's on the page.
Sorry, can you repeat which ones you're saying okay to?
All right, so I guess I'll just do it by the name. Back
No,
of
do the letters, because I'm looking
Oh,
here, so
okay.
that's fine.
Which one is the back of? That's the excess air, so that's C.
I think that was C.
C, from this sheet, C. And then from Commissioner McMahon, it was the fourth floor. I don't know which one that is. Can you help me out there? I don't know which one the fourth floor awnings is.
I could have sworn I saw something about the fourth floor. Maybe I'm
No, it's
mistaken.
on F on the page, but I don't know.
Yeah,
where it is
I
on
think it
this
was just
screen.
to remove the third floor
G.
awnings was
Okay.
the modification.
You're looking for G.
Yeah, F is trim versus awnings. So they were just going to put trim and not use awnings.
Looks like F is both third and fourth floor.
Yeah.
Ms. Kendall?
You're looking for F, which is third floor, and G, which is fourth floor. So sorry, that's not correct.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't say the number floor.
It doesn't.
Okay, so.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So which is the fourth floor? Which letter?
Oh, F.
G.
Excuse me, F
G.
is the
F.
fourth floor.
No, F
And-
is third.
So C, F, and J. I feel like we're playing a weird game of
Oh,
bingo.
so, okay, I'm looking at the staff report. I'm not looking at this over here, so
And
it's all
so
different.
you're saying to allow C, F, and G.
C, F, and J.
J, okay. But G is the one Commissioner McMahon is concerned with, where
Well, I
the
think
fourth floor
I moved
awnings.
from third to fourth floor.
Yeah, so G is fourth floor, F is third floor.
Ms. Kendall, is that correct?
And McMahon is stating, Commissioner McMahon is stating that she would like to see them on the fourth floor, but not the third floor. She's okay with removing.
No,
other
I
one.
felt like the fourth floor awnings were less important than the third floor
Okay, so
awnings.
eliminate G. J. Can you put the previous slide? What is J?
J's the vinyl window frames.
Okay. And then, so you're saying no to,
I don't know that we're saying no
Or-
to
yeah, that's what
anything,
I'm
really.
confused about.
I
So-
think we're making a recommendation, because again, I feel like it's going to go before city council, and you're going to have the architects who are going to be able to get up and say, the reason we changed the downspouts is because they had to be articulated a different way.
Yeah.
We can't conceive of them any other way. When we conceived of them, it was one thing.
totally understand. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to understand is what Commissioner Lanson's proposing.
All right, so my thought is, and again, a little bit not different, but I look at our role as supporting the city council, and to the extent they've made orders and findings, those are things that I incorporate as part of my thinking. So at the end of the day, this is not what I want or what I think. It's ultimately what I've seen codes, rules, regulations, and city council edicts provide for that. So I'm trying to be consistent to the extent possible in my mind as to what I believe that they would find is something that would be acceptable, but based on what they've done before. These three items, I think, are things that the city council would find are acceptable. The other ones, I think, are a little more problematic for me to agree to because, again, trellises and stuff, whether I like them or not, is something that was important to the city council as part of the development agreement. So I think that's, and again, they can change their mind. They're the legislative body. We are not. So that's my thinking.
With, I guess if I'm trying to understand our role. If we say, oh, we're okay with C, F, and J, Is that the only thing that goes to city council, or all of this still goes to city council?
The entire request is going to go to the city
Oh,
council.
okay.
So the role of the
So it's
planning
just for the
commission here is to make a recommendation, and so that can include all, none, or some of the requests.
And we each individually, or we all have to agree on?
We have to make a motion, we have to
So-
make.
Yeah,
so-
that's what I'm
So
trying
at the end of the day, it's a recommendation from the body.
Yeah, so
Right,
we will
so-
make someone will say, this is my recommendation, and we will vote on that.
And if we get to a point of any one thing making 3 votes,
Right, I
Yeah, I'm
think,
just trying to clarify before, spending too much time on this, because if the whole thing is going to go to city council anyways, then that's just what our council will look at, our recommendations, and then include that with what they see presented to them that day at that meeting. And then they'll make the official decision.
so what I would suggest is, after the discussion, or once you feel like there's some consensus forming, that somebody make a motion on what the recommendation of the body would be to the city council. If that gets voted upon and approved, then that recommendation would be forwarded to the city council.
But the applicant still gives the full request of all these modifications, regardless of what we say our recommendation is.
Ultimately, any application gets before us, and if it's something that takes city council approval anyway, we could make a recommendation to deny it. And it goes to city council, and they're going to see the whole thing, and it'll be the planning commission's recommendation of denial, and that weighs into their thing. So it does go there, all the details go there. It just goes with our informed view of the body, right?
And so today, if we agree upon CF and J, then that just gets written up for city council to look at as what was discussed here, but they could say, you know what, we're good with A through J. Okay.
Correct.
Just want to clarify. But we have to come to a consensus on what our recommendation is.
I would say we have to come up with, if you want an affirmative recommendation, it has to have 3 votes on what that is.
Anyone else have any more discussion? Want to make a motion? Anyone want to make a motion?
I have one more comment, and maybe somebody else, there seemed to be a construction issue with the glass for the retail. Did anybody hear that besides me, that there was a problem with the way they were going to have to do some of the utilities or something like that? And that's not, in my mind, that's not frivolous of an ask. So I wonder how everybody feels about incorporating that.
Yeah, Ms. Frisbee did address that. She did address that and said that, yeah, it was not, again, as they worked through this process, they discovered that that was not going to work with the construction. So yeah, you're correct in that.
Well, then I feel we should recommend B, because they did say that there's an issue with the angle of the downspout. So why wouldn't we include that in our recommendation? Because that actually comes into cost and maintenance as well, not just aesthetics.
I don't necessarily think that doesn't seem to me to be necessary. I don't know.
What do you mean, to not put the downspouts outside or inside?
I think that it would be much better aesthetically to put them inside, and I don't see, of course, I'm not in construction, I
Yeah,
don't see
'cause-
how that would be an issue.
But Ms. Frisbee did address that. She
Yeah, she
indicated that
brought
the
that up as a-
articulation of way that certain construction was going on, they couldn't do it that way. That's why some of them are going to be dealt with internally, but then there are others that couldn't be. And again, you know, it's kind of like.
Is there a way we know that the ones that can be done will be done and not be eliminated.
Well, I think
strictly
Justine,
first.
I think Justine addressed that. She
Did
said,
she?
she gave us the number that would, that would be impacted.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those were all, none of them were like facing the freeway or a major roadway, the exposed downspouts. Is that correct?
No, those are the exposed downspouts.
They all are on the exterior, like so?
Right.
Okay.
The interior ones are not subject to this requirement. The 14 to 16 that would have to be internalized, which would be a change from what they're currently drawing. Those are all public street facing.
Okay. And then in your discussions with the applicant, was the reasoning given to you for why they wanted it to be external is due to the water flow or the angle?
Right. Keith gave the same explanation to us, yes.
Okay.
To me, the construction design and the downspouts are really more higher-end architectural things that ultimately I think were intended to be included because they did create a unique process. And again, I'm not saying, by the way, none of us are saying that all of these are not important at the end of the day. They are. It's just from my standpoint, those to me go a little above and beyond just something that would be, potentially flowing from that. I think those are important issues that, to me, the city council would have to decide if they want to make that kind of exception.
Yeah, then you would need testimony, because my thing is I'm taking them on their word. The architect, they've gone through this process. They've built already in the community. My concern would be that if we force them to internalize the downspouts and there is an issue with water flow, that can create a maintenance issue with the building overall, and then potentially dislocates tenants if you have some sort of leakage interior-wise or whatever. That's my assumption on that. That, to me, actually seems like one of the items that's not purely aesthetic.
So one of the other bases and things that we do here is be a testing ground, so to speak, for the process when they go to the city council. So they're listening and writing everything down. And ultimately, these are great ideas. And again, also, I asked to quantify the amount of money that actually is involved here. That's something else that might be a good idea. So they're going to take all this information and go to the city council, that part. So we're basically just the, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no.
Because I'm just giving my thoughts as someone who previously worked in lending, is an investment advisor, watches the economy all the time, and lives here another 10 years. I want to see well, and I also give it projects that are not are very.
Well, and additionally, they had the development agreement, but what they're indicating to us is, particularly with respect to the windows, is, and it's what Ms. Frisbee testified to, she said, what we think is better are these other windows because they're not shiny. Now you don't have a wood grain look. And so, again, it's a process. New materials come out. And again, we're just providing fodder for city council. And so.
Well, and that's why I brought up the vinyl thing, because previously vinyl was a poorer quality, but there's been a lot of improvements in vinyl. So I think that it's important that we clarify this for city council, because if it's coming up and that's the perception, you guys have to change that perception.
And like I said before, a lot of this stuff is information that's going to end up being part of what the city council reviews, including, by the way, when the application was received. Again, I think the applicant said it was a year. That's going to be an important issue as to exactly the timing. So all of this will come out as part of the city council process. I guess the question being is, can we get to a point where three of us agree on some recommendation?
What do you think? I would like to add the glazing to that. I think that you're correct about that, because that's something that's impacting the retail.
Which letter number is that?
The glazing was E, the glazing reduction from 65 to 60% was E.
So that's the commercial storefront design. Oh, I see. Okay, yes. Okay, I'll wait to hear for what others say.
I'm done.
I mean, again, what we're doing is what everybody has said is really on point. And it's hard to go back, especially when, I don't think I was on that commission either. The three of you voted on that. And yeah, it's a lot of tugging. But again, they've now it's not going back to the drawing board. It's like, all right, we're now in the process, and some of the things we agreed to aren't working. And we're coming back to you, and your city process says, because we're finding it's not working, it's a major modification. So yeah, we're not renegotiating our development agreement. We're just saying, in the reality of every day, this is not working for us. And so I would be inclined to go with 4 of those things, send it to city council, and, you know, hopefully they're all watching tonight. Ha ha. You want to make a motion?
We're not much must-see TV.
I want to see what the other 2 commissioners think.
I think as you repeat it, I think I agree with what you've said. So if you make the motion, I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure I get what you're saying, and I'm in agreement. So.
Commissioner Buzz?
My only concern is I don't want it to just, I want it to have the same amount of attention at City Council for all A through J. And that's my only concern with eliminating some of these items, but.
I agree with you completely on
Yeah.
that. I just want to find a place of consensus so we can send it on, so we don't have
Oh,
to
yeah, that
deny
I
it.
get, but my concern is that if I say, oh, I agree with this, then City Council members I'm hoping will do their due diligence and go through the whole process, but that, I'm just voicing my concern.
Yeah.
I have no doubt Councilmember Gutierrez will go through every single thing. So you want to include E?
Yes, the glazing reduction, yes.
That to me is a bridge too far.
Okay.
So I would go ahead and make the motion to recommend that we say that yes to C,
G,
and J.
Before we move on, Justine, could you explain for everybody's benefit what those 3 things are so we're all on the same page?
Yes. So request C is replacing the French doors with straight metal utility doors for the residential exit stairs that were indicated in yellow in the applicant request. G is to retain the metal awnings as shown in the plan set stamped May 2023, rather than adding additional metal awnings on the 3rd floor level, which was required by condition of approval. And J is to provide vinyl window frames only, rather than non-vinyl framed windows required in specific areas. And I would like to note that request in particular also requires a specific plan amendment. Just to be clear.
So as I understand it, the motion is to recommend a development agreement amendment and in one instance, a specific plan amendment for those 3 items and recommend that the other items not be changed.
Correct.
Commissioner Buss, your thoughts on that? See, I tend to agree with you because, again, I agree with you on that I'm nervous about sending it up with just 3, but I would rather send it up with 3. You know, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So I would be inclined to do that.
So, but us sending up with a 3 doesn't mean that they don't all.
It's
get
not for closing them, it's just we
Yeah.
are recommending that.
And in order for this process to move along to City Council, we have to get to a consensus.
We could have, you could have 2 people agree to it, 2 people not agree, and 1 person choose not to vote, and
And it
there's
still
no
goes.
recommendation.
Yeah.
The point would be to come up with something that says, we've deliberated, here's what a majority of the commission believe is what you should consider, and they will, in fact, I believe, consider everything.
Okay.
That's my interpretation of what I think will happen.
What do you think, Noel?
I will
Yeah,
say.
I agree with that.
I'm of K, none of the above.
Okay.
You know, so I won't play the alphabet soup on all of this, but
I didn't think that, Commissioner Ferris.
So we have a motion on the table. Does anybody want to make a different motion, or are we ready to vote?
Don't we have to vote on this one first
yeah,
before?
it's on the floor, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone's trying to amend it, but I mean, I don't hear that, so I think we can
We can
go
give it a
forward
shot.
with the vote.
Okay. All right. Will the secretary please prepare us for a vote? Good luck.
Commissioner Buss?
Yes.
Commissioner Ferris?
no.
Commissioner Lanson?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Ferris voting no.
There is no appeal period on an item going to city council. Therefore, will not be discussing the appeal process.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is it possible, could the notes reflect that? The reason I voted against it is I didn't see any of the things, just for it's not a recommendation from the commission, but the reason for my vote.
Yeah, I think that could be reflected
Okay.
in the minutes.
Thank you.
Oh, and I should note that at a subsequent meeting, there will be a resolution that articulates the motion that was just approved.
Consent calendar approval of it, specific articulation of.
Yeah, it'll be on the consent calendar, but you'll have an opportunity to review it and make sure that we got it right.
Okay. We have no department reports this evening. Now is the time for commission comments and or any AB 1234 reports. Are there any comments from my fellow commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Ferris for doing a great job leading us last year. You will never find anybody that reads and understands and goes through our documents more than Commissioner Ferris. So thank you very much for all you do for the city.
Yeah, I would echo that too. You keep everybody honest.
Yeah, I would say I appreciate your attention to detail quite a bit, so thank you.
I agree with all of the above.
Is there a motion? No, just kidding. Just kidding. Ms. Zelaya Melliker, are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Yeah, the Community Development Department items for City Council include for tomorrow evening, February 24th, there will be a public hearing on the accessory dwelling unit and junior accessory dwelling unit ordinance update that the commission considered in our last meeting on January 26th. On March 10th, the City Council will hear the project you just heard tonight. There will be department reports on the annual housing element and general plan progress report. And on the consent calendar, there will be the second reading of the ADU ordinance update. Moving forward with Planning Commission schedule, we have no items to date for March 9th. On March 23rd, we will have a public hearing to consider a request for a first and second story addition to an existing residence at 1456 El Verano Drive within the single-family estate zone. There will be a public hearing to consider a request for a religious assembly use, building additions and site improvements, including parking modifications, reduction in parking, and encouragement into the protected tree zones at 530 Hampshire Road. And on the consent calendar, it will be the resolution affirming the commission's action tonight, taking on the Latigo project. And that concludes the updates.
Thank you. We will now adjourn to the next meeting on March 9th at 6 p.m. if we get anything on the calendar. Thank you.